Hello everyone, today I am going to show you how you get these lovely edges. Because doing this with light is pretty painful, so I found another way to do it. So what you do, first you go to your object, then you select an edge. Let's say I want this edge exactly on the corner. What you do is you go to Object Data Properties and you make a new attribute. Well, I call it edge, so let's call it edge again and set it to edge and add. I already did it, so I'm not gonna do it again, but you have to. And what you do then is you give a value to the edge. So I don't know where the button is, but if I don't know, I just press F3 and you can search for commands. So you set attribute, it automatically selects edge and you set it to 1. What I did is you have this and you want a curve to follow along. So what you do is Shift D, P to separate, selection, and now you have an edge, convert to curve. So now you add an empty. I scaled it on the Z-axis like 10 times, and on the X and Y axis I made it really small. So you press S, Shift Z to clamp the Z-axis. So now it's very small, and you do a follow path constraint. Take the curve, animate, and now it's animated along the curve. It's not perfectly. Make sure that the origin of the empty is at the world origin. So what you do is Shift S, cursor to world origin if you don't already have this, and Shift S again, selection to cursor. Now I can add a follow path constraint. The constraint settings are right here. Follow path, select the curve, and it's animated. If you want to have control of the simulation, you can go to the curve, and here evaluation time, you can keyframe it. I don't know why the keyframes are not showing up. Blender does that sometimes. Not very convenient, but you can work your way around it. So now we have an empty, an edge, and a edge attribute. Now what you do is you go to shader, and let's start with this part of the shader. Let's forget about this for now. So what you do, texture coordinate, empty. So this is the empty we just made. Empty 2. For you it's probably just empty. So for me it's this one, which you also should have. Then you multiply it. I should turn off compositing. Now you can see like it's doing something. Also it's not really doing something, but it's doing something. I have no clue how these colors work, but they work. So then you add a gradient texture set to quadratic sphere and a color ramp. So what that does is this. Now I have this. So also make sure to add a mix shader node with an emission set to the bottom. I put this really high for now. I will explain later why it's so high now, but you do not want this. What we do now is we bring in our edge attribute we just created, and that's this. As you can see, we have our edge. Add a color ramp to like make it a bit brighter. Might want to make it even brighter. I don't want to mess around with it too much for now. And you multiply it with a multiply node. So now my corner is white, and you can drive that white into the mix shader to let it know what areas of the shader you want to be emissive. So we want this to be emissive, and make sure to plug it in. So that's that. But now it should look like this, which is cool. But now we need to add a little bit of magic to it. So what you want to do, I'm gonna explain to you about the Blender compositor first. But let's say you do your compositing in After Effects or Fusion, I will explain to you what you should be doing. But personally, at this state of the project, I want to see as much as possible in my viewport. So I started with the Blender compositor. So you go to compositing and make sure you have emission enabled under the light paths. That's not enough. Like, now Blender knows what light path you want, but the default output, which is probably PNG or EXR, does not understand this. So to get rid of that, you go to Open EXR Multilayer, and now you have all these layers here. So what you do is you add a couple of glare nodes. These nodes are very simple. I suggest you to start with one and just see what that does, and then keep adding more. So the way to view your compositor in viewport is by going to your viewport shading settings. If your UI is different from mine, I'd say it would be here as well. And you go to compositor, enable always. So now you can see, if I take this out, there's just a stripe, and now you have a glare. So that's nice. So if I add a couple more, I will get this, which is starting to look like what we want. But this is the Blender compositor, and now you don't have very much control over the glares. I personally like to do my compositing in Fusion. So that's another reason why the OpenEXR multilayer comes in handy. So basically what it does is it renders every layer you selected here in a separate layer. So for this animation, I only want emission. But let's say you have a big VFX shot for a Hollywood film, you probably have all these enabled. But for me, that's not important right now. So what you can do is you go back to the render settings and press emission. And now you just have this emission. And the way this works, let's say I have After Effects right now, and I add my ring to the composition. You look for extractor. So extractor. What you do is you can choose which layer you want. So we can do everything, which we do not want. And by the way, I just noticed this is a different render layer. This is the entire edge, but the idea will be the same. So you can also select emission. And now you have just the emission, which is good, but the background is still black. So what you do is you go to alpha, and well, I don't really know too much about this, but I guess it doesn't matter which alpha you use. I think they should be the same. And if not, then someone tell me how you do this properly. So now, if you press this icon in the viewport, you can see we still have the edge and we have the alpha. I was talking about the emission in the shader editor because it's set to 66 now. Basically what that does is if you go to view or window, geometry scopes, now you can see that our colors are not in the scopes. They are under the value of 0 and over the value of 100, which is basically lost footage. So if I add a geometry color now, there's not that much that I can do without it, that I can do with this. because I completely destroyed the colors. Here, I can bring it back. That is because my render is set to linear rec 709, although I use ACs now, but the preset from my Blender is still set to linear. And linear can go a long way without losing color information. But I do think if you are going to composite this into your final product, you won't get this to look very clean still, even though I can bring the colors back. I think they are too crushed anyway. So what you want to do in Blender is set the emission to a maximum of 5, might be too high as well, 2.5. Now there is not much going on anymore, so the Blender composer won't be able to read this, at least not the way I do it. But when you bring in your emission layer, it doesn't matter how dark it is, because you can just add a glow effect. You can put the threshold as low as you want and the radius as far as you want without affecting anything else in your render. So let's say I have another layer with the beauty pass. So the view layer combined is what you call a beauty pass in the industry. Now I have a beauty pass, extract the view layer. Yeah, so now you can see I can crank these colors up a bit. Exposure. This is brighter. You don't have to look at this too much because it's not good, but I haven't worked on this project for too much because I'm very busy with school and work and stuff like that. Now I can manipulate both of my layers separately, so my emission and my ring. So I can set the glow color to, let's say, red or blue. Intensity way higher, and the ring layer is not affected at all. So I hope that's helpful for you guys, because the final result you will get something like this. And now you don't have to try to set a light to the corner because, well, you might be able to do it, but it's just very hard. So this is just a way easier and more controllable and procedural way of doing this, which is cool. So yeah, I hope you liked this tutorial and good luck with your Blender project.